She stood in the doorway of a small bedroom, holding her breath. The walls were painted a soft blue. Toy cars lined the shelf. A child's sweater still hung on the chair. Everything was exactly as it had been. Except the child was gone. She reached out and touched the doorframe, the place where she once marked his height, year after year. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "I loved him more than my own life," she said. "And yet, he was never mine." This is not a story about adoption. This is not a story about biology. This is a story about love and the betrayal that hid inside it. Years earlier, her life looked safe. A quiet suburban home, a husband she trusted, a future she believed in. She had always wanted to be a mother, not casually, desperately. Doctors' offices, late-night prayers, the quiet shame of baby showers she stopped attending. Then one evening, her husband came home different, nervous, careful, and with him came a story, one that would change everything. The child came suddenly, too suddenly. Her husband explained it carefully. A complicated situation, a woman who couldn't cope, a child who needed stability. "She's not in the picture anymore," he said. The words felt rehearsed, but she didn't question them. Because when a miracle finally appears, you don't ask where it came from. She said yes. And just like that, she became a mother. At first, nothing seemed wrong, but slowly, another woman appeared. Not in person, but in absence. A name mentioned too often. A silence where answers should be. The child resembled someone he shouldn't. Her husband avoided her eyes when she noticed. "She doesn't matter anymore," he said. But some people don't disappear. They wait. She loved the child without limits. Night fevers, school mornings, birthday candles. She gave him a world built on safety. Meanwhile, her husband carried a secret. An affair that had never truly ended. Only paused. The child was not just a consequence of betrayal. He was proof of it. Time passed. Not in days. In memories. She learned the child's fears. The way he cried in his sleep. The stories that calmed him. He called her mom without hesitation. And every time he did, something inside her healed. She stopped feeling like a woman who couldn't give birth. She felt chosen. What she didn't know was that someone else had already made that choice for her. As she grew closer to the child, she grew further from her husband. He stayed longer at work, answered calls outside, slept facing the wall. She told herself it was stress, that families change, but sometimes distance is not about time. Sometimes it is about guilt. The other woman's name kept appearing, in conversations that ended too quickly, in messages deleted before she could read them. Once, she asked directly, "Is there something you're not telling me?" He smiled, said no, but his eyes told a different story. Because lies don't live in words. They live in silence. The truth did not arrive loudly. It arrived quietly. A medical form. A date that didn't match. A detail that refused to make sense. She stared at the paper, feeling the ground shift beneath her feet. When she asked him about it, he became angry, not defensive. Angry. And in that moment, she understood something was very wrong. That night, the truth finally broke free. The affair had started years ago. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't brief. It was emotional, physical, repeated. The other woman hadn't disappeared. She had been waiting. And the child was never meant to stay forever. She listened in silence as her marriage collapsed in front of her. Not from hatred, but from exhaustion. The truth about the child was the last thing she learned. Not in anger, not in a fight, but in a quiet moment when there was nothing left to hide. The child was not abandoned. He had been left temporarily. The other woman had always planned to return, and her husband had agreed. Without asking her, she thought of every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every whispered, "I love you." All of it was real, and none of it mattered. Because the truth came too late. Love, it turns out, cannot protect you from deception. The goodbye was short, too short for a lifetime of love. She knelt in front of him, smiled through tears. "You were always loved," she said. He hugged her tightly, and then he was gone. The house exhaled into silence. The betrayal was not the affair. It was the decision to let her love a child without ever telling her the truth. Some wounds come not from cruelty, but from cowardice. And those are the hardest to heal. She did not lose her ability to love. She learned something deeper, that motherhood is not proven by blood, but by presence. The child may forget her face, but he will never forget what safety felt like. Because love given honestly is never wasted. Some stories don't end when the truth is revealed. They begin there.